Ladies and gentlemen, the director of the Mercury Theater and star of these broadcasts, Orson Welles.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's, and yet as mortal as his own.
What began as a simple radio play slowly turned into one of the most bizarre and frightening events in all of radio history. Young Orson Welles was narrating H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, a story about an invasion from Mars. Thousands of people who tuned in late to the show, not hearing the opening remarks, became fearful and panicky as they heard Wells describe in vivid, lifelike detail the invasion from Mars.
Just a minute. Something's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, this is terrific. This end of the thing is beginning to flake off. The top is beginning to rotate like a screw, and the thing must be hollow.
He's moving. He's back there. He's back there. Keep those men back. He's back there. Keep those idiots back. Keep off. The top's loose. Out there. Stand back.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most terrifying thing I've ever witnessed. Wait a minute. Something I can see turning out of that black hole, two luminous discs. The eyes, it might be a face, might be almost... Good heavens. Something wriggling out of the shadow like a gray snake. Now it's another one, and another one, and another one. They look like tentacles to me. Oh, yeah, I can see the thing's body. Now it's large as a bear.
Perhaps the worst part of the story is the fact that it did sound authentic. The program contained a live performance interrupted by news bulletins, interviews, and on-the-spot commentary.
I'm speaking from the roof of Broadcasting Building. New York City. The bells you hear are ringing to warn the people to evacuate the city as Martians approach. Estimated in the last 2 hours, 3 million people have moved out along the roads to the north. Hutchison River Parkway is still kept open for motor traffic. The Void bridges to Long Island hopelessly jammed. All communication with Jersey Shore closed 10 minutes ago. No more defenses. Our army is wiped out. Artillery, Air Force, everything wiped out. This may be the last broadcast. We'll stay here to the end. People are holding service here below us in the cathedral. Now I look down the harbor, all manner of boats, overloaded with fleeing population pulling out from docks. Streets are all jammed. Noise in crowds like...
By the time most people heard this, they were convinced the world was on the brink of destruction. People in New York and New Jersey were in a state of total panic, and poor Orson Welles, totally unaware of what he was doing, wound up the program in this way.
This is Orson Welles, ladies and gentlemen. Out of character, to assure you that the War of the Worlds has no further significance than as the holiday offering it was intended to be. The Mercury Theater's own radio version of dressing up in a sheet and jumping out of a bush and saying boo. Starting now, we couldn't soap all your windows and steal all your garden gates. By tomorrow night, so we did the best next thing. We annihilated the world before your very ears and utterly destroyed the CBS. You will be relieved, I hope, to learn that we didn't mean it, and that both institutions are still open for business. So goodbye, everybody, and remember, please, for the next day or so, the terrible lesson you learned tonight. That grinning, glowing, globular invader of your living room is an inhabitant of the pumpkin patch, and if your doorbell rings and nobody's there, that was no Martian, it's Halloween.
Tonight, the Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations...
The next day, and for many days thereafter, intensive surveys were made on both the broadcast and the audience. 92 CBS stations had carried the broadcast, and it was perhaps the most living example of the power of the medium. Radio continued its progress into the 40s and 50s, now growing faster than ever. Radio brought World War II and presidential elections right into the American home, and was fast becoming the most important medium America had ever seen. In the 1950s, transistors were developed and replaced the vacuum tube, allowing what was once a huge, clumsy box to be condensed in a small package of sound about the size of a pack of cigars. As more and more radios were being produced, the consumer price zoomed downward, enabling more and more people to buy more and more radios and take them anywhere. Radio was now heard on the beach, on the street, on the bus. Radio was getting around. Radio programming underwent some dramatic changes in the 1940s and 50s. As it grew up, radio went more to music and began to underplay drama, variety, documentary, and news shows. By the mid-1950s, gospel, country western, rhythm and blues, and jazz were combining talents and emerged as an entirely new form of music, rock and roll.
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. Put your glad rags on, join me home. We'll have some fun when the clock strikes 1. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock, rock, rock till broad daylight. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight.
Rock and roll was born. As this new, infectious beat began to catch on and radio began to travel, the sensation of this new form of music caught on like wildfire. Many stations across the country went to all music programming. Record companies were springing up throughout the land. What Morrow, Skelton, and Dorsey were in the 30s, Presley, Nelson, and Boone were in the 50s. In 1956, the country almost had a replay of War of the Worlds, as two young men from New York produced the first of the novelty records.
We interrupt this record to bring you a special bulletin. The reports of a flying saucer hovering over the city have been confirmed. The flying saucers are real.
Feel well, I feel what my heart can't conceal.
That was the Clatters recording. Too real. We switch you now to our on-the-spot reporter downtown.
Come on, baby, let's go downtown.
Take it away, John Cameron.
This is John Cameron downtown. Pardon me, madam. Would you tell our audience what would you do if the saucer were to land?
Undisputedly, music and radio began taking new forms. Stations began to give their announcers their own personality. Programs began to run at an incredibly fast pace, and this new sound of rock and roll and the mushrooming record industry were established.
Bobbing with the robin, hobnobbing with the robin, bobbing with the robin, everybody flies sky high.
Yeah, this is the Big Bad Bird, and for the next 3 hours we're going to be bobbing with Robin, all the hits, everything new, and everything just for you. So come on along and let's everybody have a ball.
Bobbing with the robin, no more time for sobbing.
Early rock and roll followed its roots, emphasizing ballads, blues, and love. But as the 50s quickly melted into the 60s, rock was definitely changing. The teenage singing stars were singing about anything and everything under the sun. There were more artists and record companies than all the rice in China, and they continued to grow at an alarming rate. During this time period, a new sound known as stereophonic sound emerged, whereby music could be separated and transmitted through two interconnected channels. Stereophonic sound was perfected on wax, and by the late 1960s, FM began transmitting in stereo, and along with the invasion of stereo, came another invasion by groups from England.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you something.
The Beatles paved the way, and soon England and the United States battled to capture the hearts of the record-buying public, as well as their dollars. By this time, many stations arose solely to meet the needs of the growing enterprise. Stations were on a more music kick, each station trying to play more records than the other, even though 15 minutes of every broadcast hour were commercials and news. It goes without saying that even commercials reflected the time, as can be shown by comparing commercials for Pepsi-Cola from the 1920s to the 1970s.
Pepsi-Cola hits the spot, 12 full ounces, that's a lot. Twice as much for a nickel, too. Pepsi-Cola is the drink for you.
Keep up to date with Pepsi. Drink light, refreshing Pepsi. Stay young and fair and debonair. Be sociable. Have a Pepsi. Now it's Pepsi.
For those who think young.
When lively folks work up a thirst, you'll hear them ask for Pepsi first.
They choose the light one.
The bracing bright one. Now it's Pepsi.
For those who think young.
Taste beats the others cold. Pepsi pours it on. Anytime a thirst takes hold, Pepsi pours it on. Pepsi's got that special taste created for the cold. The cold turns on that Pepsi ride, makes Pepsi-Cola come alive. Taste that beats the others cold. Pepsi pours it on. Pepsi pours it on. Others cold, Pepsi pours it on. Taste that beats the others cold, Pepsi pours it on. Taste that beats the others cold. There's a whole new way of living. Pepsi helps supply the drive. It's got a lot to give to those who like to live, 'cause Pepsi helps them come alive. It's the Pepsi generation, coming at you, going strong. Put yourself behind a Pepsi. If you're living, you belong. You've got a lot to live, and Pepsi's got a lot to give. You've got a lot to live.
Around 1966, two offshoots of rock and roll emerged. One became known as underground or progressive music. Members of the so-called hippie groups put their ideas together, experimented with distortion and electronic effects, and came up with their own expressions of music.